Okay, my other hat, I think. I'm pinch hitting for Danny. I don't know how many of you know, but unfortunately Danny had a problem with his heart last week. He ended up being airlifted to St. John. He did have a stent put in on Thursday. He's doing quite well. He's back in the office already for 4 hours yesterday. Anyway, he asked me whether I'd fill in for him tonight, and so I am. I'd like to thank Aaron and his group for all the work they've done on Facebook and organizing these town halls. It's a lot of work, and next time, don't pick it during the elimination game.
I'll try not to go.
Okay. Anyway, I'd also like to thank Charles Theriault. Charles isn't here tonight, but Charles has done a lot of work laying out what's wrong with what's going on in our forest. He's got a website called Is Our Forest Really Ours? And I would really encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to have a look, he's got a bunch of episodes on there. They're very informative and brings to light what's going on. And I'd like to thank all you for coming out tonight. And I'd even like to thank Jake for coming out. Appreciate it. And
Yeah, no choice.
Scared again.
And Pat, and Hilly, thanks for coming out. Everybody else. I'd like to ask you a number of questions tonight regarding Miramichi lumber. But first, let's have a look at what the forest could be providing to our community. It's great right now the OSB mill is operating. That mill is badly needed. It takes care of our pulp and our low-end fiber, not only on Crown land, but on private. We really need the OSB mill, but that uses the pulpwood, the low-end fiber. But why should Canada's forestry capital be relegated only being able to support an OSB mill? What about an engineered lumber plant? What about a stud mill? What about a sawmill? Or a pellet mill? And what about electrical generation in a heat plant? This is hundreds of jobs that Miramichi could have if we could even use a fraction of our resource. The softwood sawmill allocation in Miramichi, allocated to Miramichi lumber and the Acton plywood mill, is 169,000 cubic meters. That's a lot of wood, but it's only 17% of what's coming off the crown of actual saw material every year off our license. Only 17%. And it's great to have an allocation, but neither the plywood mill nor us are allowed to access it. So 100% of it's going somewhere else. I acknowledge that Miramichi Lumber has been unable to meet its financial commitments to the province. Well, let's also recognize that the province has not honored its commitment to provide Miramichi Lumber with saw logs. Without the saw logs, the mill cannot generate revenue. It can't generate revenue. It's not going to be able to pay its debts. In my opinion, it's pretty simple. A restricted access to log allocation from the province means no payments to the province. It's just that simple. Last year, we only ran 20 weeks on saw logs. The year before, 17 weeks. And the year before that, 4 weeks. And this year, it's going to be 0, it looks like. Now for my questions. I'd like you to think about these. Is there, and I'm going to follow up on what Danny had said when he talked at the United Church Center. But is there something wrong when a $1.5 million loan guarantee to the bank was not renewed in October of 2014? There would be no additional cost to the province. And because they didn't renew it, 140 people, jobs were threatened, not to mention the investment by all parties, whether it be shareholders or province. There must be something wrong when the province offered in December to renew the guarantee, but under conditions that were impossible to meet. You know, you can have $1 million if you go to the moon and back tonight. It's not much of a commitment. There must be something wrong when there's been no progress or even dialogue on trying to resolve our saw log allocation issues with the province. Is there something wrong when the province denies an export permit for stud? So we want to send stud to Nova Scotia, royalties were paid, and we were going to bring in more logs for Nova Scotia than stud we were exporting. And the stud mills didn't want the stud because they had a surplus. Is there something wrong when the province provides an export permit for the pulp? Now they gave us an export permit for pulp in mid-February 2015, after the harvest season was over, after we'd left 25,000 tons of pulp laying on the ground to rot. It was nice to get the export permit, but by the time we got it, it was too late. Is there something wrong when faced with no market for small studwood, the province denies request to deliver surplus studwood to Argyle? Is there something wrong when the province ignores a request for an independent third-party review and to make recommendations to resolve the allocation issues with Miramichi lumber? Is there something wrong when the province denies a request to carry over unused allocation for another year? And this was because of the fire we had on January 6th. Is there something wrong when the province demands payment for our 2000 royalty outstanding, which is $706,000? But we got to remember that we pay about $3 million of royalty every year based on what we harvest. And that's all been paid ever since 2011. Is there something wrong when Miramichi Lumber receives no saw logs from any other allocated mill for the year ended March 31st, 2015, despite having delivered over 80,000 cubic meters of wood to other mills? Is there something wrong when the province advised us we could not use our insurance proceeds to repair our mill? This was 140 jobs lost, and we've received no reasonable explanation from the province. Is there something wrong when the province demands payment for an equipment loan and they guarantee that they have to pay out because they wouldn't renew, but won't provide us with access to saw logs? Is there something wrong when the province denies access to Crown land for Miramichi lumber? And there was another 60 jobs lost. We would have gone ahead and cut and provided to other mills. Is there something wrong when the province denies access to Crown land to clean up wood that's already laying on the ground from our March cut? And we normally do this in May and June. We weren't allowed to do it until July this year. Is there something wrong when the province continues to deny access to our allocation to run our carriage line? And that's not as many jobs, but it's 40 jobs for the sawmill, 15 for the planer, and 60 in the woods. Is there something wrong when the province cancels a settlement conference that could have prevented a long court process and put 140 people back to work with a payroll of $500,000 a month? Is there something wrong when the province will not allow us to sell saw logs that were cut in February and March of this year? No allocated user will accept it, but they won't let us sell them. So currently, these crown saw logs are rotting on the ground, roadside in the woods. Unbelievable. Is there something wrong when the province doesn't understand, and this is the bureaucracy, because they're the ones that administer it, doesn't understand that a 20% increase in a crown softwood supply without an increase in milling capacity, at a time when only 50% of the private sustainable cut is being harvested, would lead to a surplus of wood in the province. I mean, how do people not understand this? This is even compounded even further in Miramichi, without enough local markets for pulp, stud, saw logs, and veneer. It all has to be trucked away. Is there something wrong when your competitor for round wood controls our access to the Crown log supply? We have to go through our competitor in order to get our Crown log supply. Now the biggest question might be, why should the province allocate 50% of the wood to one company? How does this happen? Not only do they have access to the allocation, they manage much of the Crown forest and private forest in New Brunswick. How is this good public policy? We need to fight for our wood. My prediction is if we cannot persuade the province to change its position on an equitable distribution of wood, the plywood mill will not reopen, our sawmill will have to close permanently, all 25,000 truckloads of saw material will leave Miramichi for processing elsewhere. 25,000 truckloads. Private woodlot owners don't have a chance of getting a fair price for their wood. There'll be extra trucking costs for them and limited competition. That's money that leaves our community and doesn't get spent here. With no plywood mill and no sawmill, I suspect the pellet mill will have a great deal of difficulty being feasible. Our children and grandchildren will continue to leave Miramichi to find work elsewhere. Teaching positions will continue to decline as enrollment declines in our schools. Our economic base will continue to decline. I mean, none of those are positive comments. And it's great that we have, 550 white-collar jobs coming in. I mean, we need that. But what about the blue-collar jobs? What about the guys that actually make something, produce something? We need that. I truly hope we can. I truly hope we can persuade the province to provide Miramichi with an equitable share of our wood basket. I'd like to thank you for listening. And if anybody's got any thoughts or want to offer any suggestions, always like to hear from you. Thank you.